Welcome to Into the Grain podcast, where we slow down and talk about what matters. This episode was recorded at the Hope FM podcast studio and is sponsored by P39 Adventure Gear. I am your host, Austin Hulett, and with me as always is our co-host, my dad, Aaron Hulett. And today's guest, we have Brian Motter. Brian has spent nearly 3 decades as a professional cyclist, which is an unprecedented feat in the sport. He has competed and represented USA in both mountain bike racing and cyclocross world championships around the globe. He is also a 4-time Iceman champion, which is the current male record. Iceman is a mountain bike race held in Traverse City, Michigan. He's widely respected amongst the cyclist community for his longevity, competitiveness, and what he's kind of given back to the sport. Beyond racing, Brian is also a devoted coach at Momentum Endurance, and he's the founder of the Junior Mountain Bike Camp, which is held in Houghton, Michigan, and also in a variety of locations throughout the Midwest. Excited for you all to dive in, and we hope you enjoy. All right, Brian, welcome to the podcast. Thank you for joining us and also rescheduling this. What are we on?
This is our third try.
You've been absolutely patient with us. For those listening, we originally scheduled this, I think, a month ago at this point. And I got my daughter got sick, so we had to cancel and reschedule. We're like, we'll do it next week. And then I got sick the following week. My wife got sick. It just became a massive trickle-down effect. Whole family got it, but we're here. We're not sick yet, so thanks for being patient with us.
We're
Brian.
recording, so it's game on now.
Yeah,
It's happening.
It's happening, so we're here. Well, as we jump in, I kind of want to lay the groundwork and paint a bit of a picture. A lot of people at home probably aren't as familiar with mountain bike racing, what that looks like on a professional level. So can you give us kind of paint a bit of a picture of what does it look like to be a professional athlete, mountain bike racing? What are some of those bigger events that you've been a part of as well?
Sure, yeah. Yeah, I would say right now in today's day and age of mountain biking, I would say there's a pretty wide variety of professional mountain bike racers. There's guys who are racing at the top level of the sport who are getting paid a very good amount of money. And I think that's the ultimate goal for everybody. And then there's quite a few professionals who are racing at a high level, but barely scraping, to get by. There's not a lot of support from the industry past those top 10, top 15 guys in the country. So I'd say that's the majority of people, doing it for like passion because they love the sport, they love racing, they love competing. And then there's quite a few people nowadays who are, professional mountain bikers, but they're a little more, on the social media side of things. They're ambassadors, and they're representing brands through YouTube videos, Instagram videos. Same passion for the sport, but a little less like race oriented, more, partnerships with brand oriented.
Yeah. And you kind of strike me more as a head down, get to work. Passion is there for the sport and the kind of the adventure side of it versus maybe the public facing, more of the brand orientation side, kind of those other elements that you spoke of. Is it fair to say, or am I off there?
I would say that's a very fair assessment. I would probably say I'm a little more old school in that topic. Like, I like to go out and train hard. I like to race. If I could race every single weekend, I would be out there racing every single weekend. I just love the sport, and I have since day number one. So it's the new age of, again, like Instagram and social media is a little bit challenging for me. But yeah, I'm adapting. I do a fair amount of it because it's a requirement nowadays. But would much rather be out there on my bike and enjoying the competition and training and being in nature.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to talk about how that started too. I know you grew up in Pinckney, Michigan, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so I heard you kind of grew up riding the Pinckney Potawatomi Trail. Did I pronounce that right first time?
Close.
Did I? I knew I was going to butcher that. I heard you grew up kind of riding that trail, riding with your dad, kind of playing bicycle tag, all that fun stuff. Talk to me about those earlier days. What did they look like growing up?
Yeah, I mean, I would say you nailed it. The Potawatomi Trail is this 18-mile super old school single track in southeast Michigan. Kind of goes through Hell, Michigan, and the Silver Lake Rec area, which is just outside of Pinckney. It's probably 4 miles from the house I grew up in. So, as a 13, 14, 15-year-old kid, exploring the neighborhood via bike with all the friends. It was like, I don't know, like ET when all the kids are riding their bikes, or, what's the new show now? Stranger
Yeah,
Things.
Stranger
right.
Things.
All
Yeah.
those kids are riding bikes around the neighborhood. Like that
Yep.
was me.
Yep.
And as I got a little bit older, or a little more capable, I kind of expanded out of the neighborhood over to that Potawatomi Trail. And it was just an amazing escape from home and a new way to explore the area that I lived in. Had a couple buddies who were into it with me, and yeah, it basically grew from there.
Yeah. Well, it reminds me of kind of growing up too, and I'm sure you can relate to this too, Dad. But when we were growing up, I got an older brother and a younger sister, but I always kind of did what my older brother did, and he would be riding bikes, and we'd basically just kind of collect money, cans. We'd go to the local corner store and just return the cans and get pieces of candy or whatever we could afford with it.
Yep.
But I don't know if that's something that resonates with you at all, Brian. But I feel like that was a big part of my childhood too.
100% Saturday morning bike ride was to
Yeah.
the high school football stadium after the Friday night football game. We'd be under those bleachers collecting pop cans.
Yeah, there you go.
We'd
Yep,
go to
yep, yep,
the,
yep.
we would go to the local convenience store, which was called Mug and Bops in Pinckney, and we would, 5-cent candy all day long.
Love it.
And that pretty much fueled us for our adventures. It was an amazing experience for sure.
Yeah.
Wow, that's cool. I feel like everybody has a little story like that. I grew up in a subdivision, which he lives in now, called Old Farms. And there were, it was a subdivision, but back then there weren't houses on every lot. And we had little single track. This is where I first started, I really first fell in love with trail riding is a lot of these undeveloped lots. We just had our own single track in there. We just made trails. And over the years, we had a whole trail network between the houses and all the vacant lots. And that's just what we did. So.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Tell me
That's
about,
awesome.
I want to talk about the first race you went to. And again, let me know if I'm off the mark here, but I heard your first race was in 93, the Garland Hammer. Is that accurate to say? So,
That is accurate. The
okay.
Garland Hammer, I believe I finished in the beginner men 18 and under in 11th place, if my memory
That's a good
serves me
memory.
right.
Yeah, man.
Okay, nice. That's very impressive. When I was kind of doing a little bit of research on you, you'd said that race was the kind of race that shifted you really towards falling in love with mountain bike and the racing, the culture a bit. Is that fair to say? And if so, what about that race hooked you?
Yeah, so I think if we go back one step, like in those days, riding the Potawatomi Trail, at some point in time, we met some people on trail who ended up living in Pinckney as well, and they were mountain bike racers. And as a 14, 15-year-old kid, I found that amazing. Like I thought mountain biking was just you go out and ride trails. I had no idea there was such a thing as racing. And so these folks, their name were Jeff and Ann Bierman, they invited me to that first race, the Garland Hammer. And yeah, again, as a 15-year-old kid, like to discover that there was such a thing as racing, then to get invited to a race with these older people who were fast, like it was like the adventure aspect of that and the excitement of it was like through the roof. So my dad and I went up there with another neighborhood friend, and yeah, that's where it started, the Garland Hammer, 1993.
Man, that's 33 years ago. Am I
That's
doing my math
crazy.
right?
Yeah, I'm not
Wow.
gonna test the math, but that sounds right. That's wild. So it sounds like it was more like the passion behind mountain bike racing, or rather the passion behind riding your bike, finding you can have an outlet for it that actually is something you can compete in is what drew you rather than maybe the culture, the environment, going to that race that also kind of sucked you in.
Yeah, I think at first it was the adventure and the
Yeah.
unknown and new trails and new friends and just that discovery that so many other people did that because in Pinckney and the Potawatomi Trail, I would say it was, relatively small. If you'd go out and ride the trail for an hour, you'd likely not see anybody else. So to be thrown into this world of hundreds of other bike racers, yeah, it was just eye-opening and we had an amazing first experience. We were camping and cooking on the camp stove and slept in the tents and woke up in the morning. All of a sudden I got my first number on my bike. Like there was the nerves, there was the
Yeah.
adventure. So yeah, it all stemmed from that for sure.
Yeah. Well, the reason I asked that and think about it is because I don't live in this world of mountain bike racing, but obviously my dad does heavily, and I remember the first race that he took us to, or rather, I remember the feeling, and I think the first race was actually Iceman.
Probably
I
was.
think it was
Yeah.
Iceman, ironically enough, given our guess, but I'm pretty sure it was Iceman, and the environment at Iceman, at least I think this might have been 2016, 2017, maybe somewhere around that range. I was like blown away at the environment, the community, and just the passion and drive. Everyone was just going nuts, and I was like, "This is insane! I didn't know this was a little ecosystem that existed." And then as I kind of started attending more of my dad's races, traveling with him to Virginia, obviously you have in Marquette and in Ishpeming area, we would always do
Yep.
the Margie Gessick. That was almost became a family tradition, is kind of coaching my dad, or not coaching rather, but being sort of an aid support during those grueling races. But yeah, the community and the culture and the environment around it is what really drew me in as kind of an outsider. So I found that interesting.
Yeah,
Obviously, Dad,
I,
I'm
I
sure you
think it
can relate.
draws you in. Like Brian, when you were talking about going to Garland first and just the sights and the sounds and putting that race number on your bike. I remember when I first put the first race number on my bike and I was like, oh man, it's on now. And the nerves were just like, I was on the verge of either throwing up or leaving or racing, on the first one. And I had that feeling. I don't know about you, Brian, but I think a lot of racers do for a while. It took me a year or two for that to go away too. I still had the nerves, but it's cool, man. You're kind of living in the right spot when you're in that zone. So, Brian, I want to circle back a little bit because you talked about this Garland race, and this was in 1993. So you have a little bit of a wrestling background before that, right? Your dad was a coach. Was that kind of your athletic experience? Was it kind of strictly around wrestling before that, or did you do other things? Or
Yeah, I mean, I would say I did a few other things, like, I tried out for the basketball team, played a couple years of soccer in the youth soccer leagues, middle school soccer, freshman year, played soccer, ran track and cross country. But wrestling was definitely, what we did as a family, probably from like age 5 through my senior year of high school. And wrestling is definitely a sport where there's no hiding. When you're
yeah,
out on the wrestling mat, it's you versus the other guy, and you either win or you lose, and there's no hiding, there's no blaming anybody else. It's like pure competition. And I think that aspect of competition and that hard work that's required to be prepared for a wrestling match or a season of wrestling is kind of what like set my foundation and my mindset for like hard work and willing to put in that work year after year, practice after practice, training ride after training ride, that kind of helped me establish my career and is what also is like allowing my career to continue.
yeah, I could see where wrestling would
Oh
build
yeah,
a great foundation for any sport, but especially cycling, because in wrestling you have to have the strength, the endurance, the cardio. You have to have it all. So
and speaking of
Yeah, and
fuel, oh no, please.
and the mindset, like the
yeah,
mindset, like again, it's just you versus the other guy out there. Everybody's watching, so you learn to be a good sport. Like if you're out there and you lose, Now you lose in 30 seconds, which I probably did a lot in wrestling. Like you got to learn how to win, you've got to learn how to lose, and that really set me up for success as a
Yeah.
professional biker.
Yeah, and how to recover mentally, not physically, but mentally. I feel like when you have those hard losses, or like in wrestling, maybe something that's really embarrassing, you get pinned in, 30 seconds or whatever. You got to get back out, either that at that meet or the next meet, and you got to do it again. So
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of that too, this is a perfect segue. I'm going to throw a name your way and I want you to tell me what that name means to you. And it's Billy Jones.
Billy Jones.
Billy Jones Road Race State Championships.
Yeah, yeah. Billy Jones, we're actually really good friends for the early part of my professional career. I actually rented a house from Billy down in
Hmm.
Tucson. But I bet he doesn't even know that I don't remember the year, but one of the few times I did road race state championships in Wisconsin, maybe this was 2006 or 2005, in that time
Yeah.
frame. I was a young professional mountain biker. I thought I was amazing. I thought I was guaranteed to win this race. And Billy, probably 10 years older than me, 15 years older than me. At the time, I thought he was an old man. So for sure, I'm going to beat him. But
Yeah.
he
I like where this
attacked
is
Yeah.
going.
me in that race straight up. And for years, that was like, if I thought about that race, that motivated me more than anything else. So I bet Billy doesn't even know that story, but yeah,
I love that.
he motivated me for many, many training rides.
That's cool. We got to get this podcast to Billy, it sounds
Yeah.
like.
Yeah. 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 That seemed like an anchor moment too for you, like quite significant to have one event just be kept in the back of your head anytime you had maybe a hard training day or you had to fuel yourself up for a race or event, or maybe you were just feeling a little bit less motivated one day. It sounds like having that in the back of your pocket as fuel you could just pull out and just fire you up is super important, especially given the longevity you've had in the sport.
Yeah, for sure. And what's interesting there, like it wasn't an important race to me. Like I wasn't a road racer. I didn't really want to, at the beginning of the year, that road race state championships was probably not even on my race calendar. But for some reason, like I learned so much from that race that anybody can beat anybody on any particular day. And just it stuck with me that that was a race that I had a missed opportunity. And I learned so much from it. And again, like used it as motivation for many years into the future.
Yeah.
Man,
Yeah.
what a great life lesson,
I know that's
you know?
massive to have something like that. And it's funny because it's so crazy how you can be fueled by certain things. Like some people are fueled and driven by the fear of failure or maybe previous failures, kind of like what you're talking about with this road race state championships and how they can use and leverage that. And others are kind of fueled by the potential or things that they've set out in the future and kind of they're trying to reach that potential and check those boxes, and that's driving them. So it's funny to see which push and pull, where do people lean towards that fuels them most? Is it kind of the ambitions that they have and the goals that they're chasing, or is it more kind of the fear or failure that they've experienced in the past that drives them to hit those? So I'm always curious to unpack that with each athlete or just individual in general.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think honestly, like the most successful athletes will probably use every single thing possible. So a combination of what you just described, like you obviously have to be motivated by your future goals, but then you also have to learn and be motivated from past failures.
Hmm.
And you can't let those past failures really bring you down that much. Like that could be the end of a person's career if they don't reach that goal or if they don't win that race. But for me, it was just interesting. Like previously that year, I'd probably done 20 other races and very likely, lost 19 of those 20. So why was it that that one particular race
Right, stuck.
motivated me? Like
Yeah,
it just did. Like it wasn't planned. But that one just stuck out and motivated me into the future.
yeah. Well, I also kind of want to shift towards what I've in doing some research read that is was a bit of a low point in your career, which is around 2004. I think you were maybe 26 or so, somewhere in that range. Money was drying up in the sport. I think you were traveling a bunch. You said that your wife was in nursing school. Again, correct me if my research is wrong here, please. And during that year, you had stated that you were honestly considered walking away from racing altogether. Do you remember that year, and what sort of memories, if so, kind of bring you back that are significant about that point within your career?
Yeah, I would say 2004 was kind of a transition year for me for sure. So at that time, or just prior to that, the Norba series, which was National Off-Road Bicycle Association, like that was the big series for U.S. professional mountain biking. In the late 90s, I mean, that series was uh, like no other bike racing series I've experienced in the US. There was traffic jams going into events. There was traffic jams leaving events. You know, it was John Tomac and Ned Overend and Tinker Juarez, like the legends of the sport. And people were getting paid a lot of money. By the time 2004 rolled around and I was a young professional, like you said, that the money started drying up and the money started shifting towards road racing because of Lance Armstrong and his
Mm,
popularity and his live strong and cancer story. Like mountain biking kind of had run its course right at that time. It was super popular and it was fading. And yeah, I was young and needed to figure out life. Um, Early that season, I had a crash and I separated my shoulder. And that, for a short period of time, was when I said, okay, I'm gonna stop doing these Norba races. I'm gonna stop
mm,
traveling. I'm probably gonna have to get a job, and I'm probably gonna have to stay local to the Midwest. And I don't know, maybe go back to school, maybe just get a job, whatever it is, support my wife during her nursing school. But it was later that year, 2004, when I recovered from my separated shoulder, that I won Or to Shore. A month later, I won Shawamagan. And 2 months later, I won Iceman. So, for the first time in history, and the only person to do it, I won that Triple Crown of Midwest racing. Um, and that kind of like made me realize I could still have a bike racing career as a professional while being based out of the Midwest.
mm.
And I don't necessarily have to go to the biggest and best races. I can find sponsors who will support me, being a Midwest racer.
I gotta just we gotta just back up a second. That's amazing what you just said. You were at least this is my perspective. You were at the point of maybe one of the lower, if not the lowest point in your career, but yet immediately. So a lot of people could have given up, and it would have been easy to just get a job, kind of like you mentioned, and go to Plan B or Plan C. But you were on the cusp of the winning the Triple Crown. You were weeks or a month or two before it, and that could have just
Yeah.
all it could have all fallen apart if you would have let it, right? Another great life lesson. I love that. But you stuck to it, obviously, and to win the Triple Crown is like that's amazing. To win
Yeah.
one of those races is tough. So
Yeah.
that's super cool.
Was there any intention going into those races? Like, this might be my last year or something of that regard, since you were kind of coming in, you had that injury, you talked about potentially leaving. Was there any fuel of like, oh, this is maybe my last kind of hoorah, maybe just give it my all? Did that have any influence?
I'm sure it did a little bit. Like, I think I did have it in my head that I was done chasing that dream of, being paid $1 million to be a professional mountain bike racer, traveling the country and, maybe even traveling the world doing this with like a factory level support. But it was eye-opening, that I was able to, continue training, continue racing, recover from that
Mm-hmm.
injury and go and win that Triple Crown.
Mm-hmm.
So that was something that like the previous year, my training partner, one of my best friends, Tristan Scouten, He had won Iceman the year before. I might have won Ore to Shore the year before and was third at Shawinigan. So we kind of created that Triple Crown name just out of fun.
Okay.
Like, oh, you won one, I won one, I almost won the other one. We should call this thing the Triple Crown and go for it.
Yeah.
So, like, it was kind of like a consolation prize to like be the best in the Midwest, but then at the same time, it opened so many more doors for sponsorship and opportunity for me to continue my career.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's shift gears to the coaching side of things. I believe you started coaching around 2008. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so 2008, you start diving into the coaching world. Eventually, I think a few years after, you founded this mountain biking camp, which we'll get into. What pulled you to that side of the sport during that time?
I think same thing, just my passion for the sport and wanting to share that passion with other people. So it actually started in Sheboygan, Wisconsin, where my wife is from. So that's where I moved back to when I was done chasing that Norba dream in 2004. It was based out of Sheboygan, Wisconsin. I was going to college at UW, Wisconsin, as University of Wisconsin, Sheboygan, and we had a small cycling team there.
Mm.
Um, and that cycling team asked me to help write them some training plans to prepare for collegiate national championships. And at that time, yeah, I thought it was pretty cool. Like they were reaching out to me as a professional, as
Mm.
somebody, who had just won the Triple Crown. They wanted my knowledge. So it was cool to work with them. It was cool to motivate them. And then when I saw their success, like it was almost as exciting for me as winning myself.
Oh,
So my
okay.
passion for like helping other people, seeing them succeed in the sport, seeing them as happy as I am when I win, like that was almost like my next path in the sport.
That's really interesting. Yeah, I've always curious, and when I was again, I keep calling back to research, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but Dad mentioned it earlier about how you kind of grew up wrestling. Your dad was big into wrestling, and I believe he started a wrestling youth group of some sorts that he coached growing up in Pinckney. Is that correct?
Yep, yep,
And,
yeah. Through the community education program, Dad started, yeah, Pinckney Youth Wrestling,
yeah. Okay.
um, which was, yeah, I think he just loved wrestling. So he's like,
Yeah.
oh, let's start a wrestling team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
50 kids showed up, 40 kids quit by the end of the year. There was 10 kids wrestling,
Jeez.
and
Okay.
dad
Okay.
absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
And the next year it was more like 60 kids showed up and 40 quit. So we had 20 kids in the
Right.
wrestling program, and he actually built, a pretty solid program over the years for Pinckney wrestling, that turned into Pinckney Middle School wrestling, turned into
Mm.
Pinckney High School wrestling.
Growing up in that type of environment, the reason I asked this is, obviously you're coaching now, you've been coaching since 2008. What influence do you see growing up in that environment, seeing your dad coach other athletes at a young age? What influence do you see he's had on you as a coach now?
I'm going to go back to the same thing, passion.
Mm.
Like my dad's passion for wrestling is out of this world. And I kind of saw like how much joy that brought him. And although it probably wasn't the best scenario for me personally, having dad as my wrestling coach,
Right.
I
like it
can
was
see
it
Right.
was
that.
just a little bit too much, but like
Yeah.
that actually probably drove me towards mountain biking. Like my senior year of high school, like I had an option of like go out to Arizona and race the Cactus Cup, which was a huge stage race in the mountain biking world in the mid 90s, or do high school wrestling state championships. And I think it bummed my dad out quite a bit,
Mm.
but I chose let's go to Cactus Cup and race mountain
Mm-hmm.
bikes. So that
Mm-hmm.
was also kind of like a changing moment, like me choosing my own path of
Right.
being a mountain biker, not necessarily following dad's passion, but I saw that passion and again the joy that it brought him, and probably same thing for me, just a
Mm-hmm.
different sport.
Mm-hmm. So being a coach, tell me a little bit how you define the job of a coach. I mean, obviously at the surface level, you're designing training. How do you balance the training aspect? Do you dip into the mind aspect of your athletes and coaching, managing emotions of your athletes? What does that balance look like as a coach?
Yeah, I'd say that's a great question. Obviously, the training plan is critical. Like encouraging an athlete to work hard and designing a plan around their lifestyle, their family, their work schedule, what they can physically handle as far as time on the bike is super important. And if you don't have those nuts and bolts in place, it's going to be very challenging to be successful. However, probably more so than that, you know, being in the mind and on the same page as the athlete is super and super important. So I think that's probably almost more important than the training plan itself. Being on the
Okay.
same page as the athlete, being aware of what they're thinking, what they're feeling, what they're doing on a daily basis, and then kind of adjusting training plans around that.
Yeah, I can attest to that because obviously, Brian, you coached me for several seasons, and I remember that I think it was 2018 was the first year that you coached me, and I can't remember what I was training for that year. I think it was the Margie 50. That was my A race, and I think like right off the bat, I had a knee injury. Like I was so excited to start training with you and get because that was at the point where I was getting pretty serious about in long ultra endurance racing, and I just remember thinking there's no way this is happening. You just started coaching me and I injured my knee. And I think I was like 30 days, maybe a little longer of just almost no workouts, limited
Mm,
workouts. But you did talk me through a lot of things. And that was really eye opening to me because I was thinking that was just going to be, racing training plans and that was about it. But getting an athlete through the mental side of things is just as important, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Brian, is getting them through the physical side because, it's going through the physical side of it is one thing, but man, if you don't have the fuel on the mental side, then nothing else really matters, you know?
Yeah, definitely. And what's fun for me in the coaching is that each athlete needs something else. So for you, for example, like that mental grit that's required to do those races like Margie Gesick, you're out there for 12 to 14 hours grinding away. That's a very different mental mindset than what like an aspiring 16-year-old junior needs as far as mental work and mental coaching when they're getting ready for a 20-minute junior national championship short track race. So that also keeps it very exciting for me and very fun for me. Like the different athlete requires different physical training plans, and different mental prep work.
Yeah. So it always keeps you on your toes and there's a lot of variety there. Yeah.
Definitely. And I coach cyclocross racers, mountain bikers, the endurance mountain bikers. I'm coaching
Yeah.
people who live in Arizona, who live in the Midwest. So something's always different, whether it's the season and the weather, the discipline. So again, super fun with the variety of athletes that I've coached over the years.
and in these coaching, you talk about these kind of getting a little bit more behind the curtain of each of your athletes, kind of understanding them on a maybe you could say a psychological level to a degree, depending on what it is that they're training for. Uh, how do you train athletes, or do you train athletes and teach them principles through certain training programs, such as setting up a race or a prep race or whatever training for that week to teach them patience or maybe pacing or some sort of belief that the individual athlete needs? Do you ever look at training from that angle when you're setting up a certain training day?
Yeah, 100%. So usually that starts with like an initial consultation, an initial phone call, finding out what the athlete wants, what their goals are, what their history is, and like just being really open and honest. Like with Aaron, for example, like one of his goals was, I want to get the buckle at Margie. And my first response was, "Hey, Aaron, this is going to be extremely challenging. Like, this is going to be
Slow
hard.
down here. Slow down here,
I
Dad.
can't promise you that we're
Yeah.
going to be able to reach this goal, but I can promise you that we are going to do everything humanly possible to make it happen."
Hmm.
So, a challenging goal for sure, but different different approach training wise. We push the physical limits, we push the mental limits. And maybe a different phone call is with a 15-year-old kid who wants to do NICA racing, or again, junior national championships. And that's a very different, like, it's a different goal. It's a different mental mindset.
Mm-hmm.
A younger
Mm-hmm.
athlete, we're looking a little more towards like long-term development, keeping the sport fun, keeping the sport fresh. And I kind of rely on my past experiences, growing up on the Potawatomi Trail, going to that first race, the Garland Hammer. And I remember all those emotions and I try to share that with,
Yeah.
with a younger athlete.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of those emotions, we've talked about it a bit about how at the beginning of your careers, any big races or events, you had those nerves fueling you, and putting that your actual plate. What am I drawing a blank? Your number on
Oh
your
yeah.
bike. Brought up all those emotions and feelings. And I found this study that a psychologist did by the name of Allison Brooks, and she had studied athletes or just individuals and their physical sensations they feel before some sort of big event. Could be a public speaking event. It could be a race like you're talking about. And what she found is that the actual physical sensations they feel are the same whether it is labeled as anxiety, nerves, or it's labeled as excitement. So the difference is really just kind of how the individual labels that sensation. And you're talking about what you both said at the beginning of your kind of experience of getting into races. That sensation at first was nerves, nervous. But a lot of athletes will flip that script mentally to give them a bit of an edge and just label that as excitement, as something that kind of motivates and pushes them rather than that kind of induces a feeling of maybe anxiety, fear, and closes them off. And with your athletes that you have from either a youth level or to an older level, how do you teach them to flip that mindset? Because it sounds like you naturally do that, and you kind of just mentioned it a bit ago.
Yeah, 100%. If I have an athlete tell me, "Oh, I'm really nervous," my instant reaction is that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That means you trained hard. That means you're well prepared. That means you know what's about to happen and you've put in the work, and that means, like, bottom line, you want to do good and
Mm-hmm.
you're ready to do good. So those nerves that you're feeling are just a sign that you're ready to go out there and perform. And I've said that to many, many athletes
Mm-hmm.
over the years, and I'm sure some of them can flip that script, and some of them it's very hard not to just be overcome with those emotions and those nerves, and they are, not able to perform up to their standards because those mental feelings kind of hold them back.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
that's where, as a coach, you can help an athlete as much as possible, but there are definitely some athletes who, yeah, can't handle those emotions, or those emotions are much bigger in some athletes, and it becomes very challenging.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I have seen that in racing. I used to train and race with a guy that was, oh, I'm losing my earpiece, that was noticeably faster than me. And he was his own worst enemy. He would get so nervous on race day, and he didn't have someone to frame it like you would frame it, like you just said you do for your athletes. And he just couldn't get over the mental anxiety, and it would throw him off, even though the reality that I found this to be the reality, maybe you have too, Brian, and maybe your athletes have, but you can, no, it doesn't matter how nervous you are. As soon as the race starts, that those nerves go away within 10, 15 seconds. And it's all about focus, controlling your heart rate, trying to keep up with the leader, whatever's going on. And yeah, it's so true. Right? It goes back to what we talked about earlier. Racing is such a mental game.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
there's things you can definitely do to help overcome that. I have a lot of athletes, um, do meditation to try to calm those nerves. I have a lot of athletes, doing mental strength exercises and doing visualization, especially when it's like a particular race that I'm familiar with, that I know they're doing. Like Iceman's a great example. Iceman's definitely one of the biggest, most competitive races in the Midwest. Like you said earlier, the vibes at Iceman are unmatched. Like it's an amazing atmosphere. Sometimes people show up to that atmosphere and they're paralyzed with those nerves. So because I know that atmosphere very well, I can have an athlete do visualization, from the time they roll up to the Grand Traverse Resort and walk in that registration room, where there's like 50 booths and everybody's talking about tire pressure and the weather and what clothes are you going to wear and what gloves are you going to wear.
Mm-hmm.
Like we can be prepared for that mentally by doing visualization prior to even showing up.
Mm-hmm.
So there's definitely things that you can do to help that. But again, some athletes, it's definitely overwhelming.
Are there any, with all this experience that you have, obviously there's so many years of experience you can pull on to learn and train others through just past events, mindsets, all that. Are there any like books or impacts of other athletes, tidbits of conversations that have really influenced either your coaching or how you navigate some of these mindset or even just training?
I would say nothing that like really, really stands out. I think for me right now, it's that 30 plus years of experience and just taking a tiny little bit from each athlete and each experience that I have as a racer, each experience that an athlete has as a racer, like that has kind of formed my thought process and my plan with coaching. And I feel like I have a pretty proven track record. I feel like my athletes have been very successful. So yeah, not one particular thing or one particular athlete has kind of like molded me more than any other.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a large pool of a wealth of knowledge that I've gained over 30 years.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about the junior mountain biking camp. We haven't really dove into this yet. I was really interested in this. So, what interested me is how you started it. From what I heard, is that Michigan Tech called you, and this was like in the thick of your career as well. So you were in the thick of it. You were getting started. You had some momentum. Michigan Tech calls you. They're like, "Hey, we want you to do this race, or not race. Sorry, we want you to host this camp," and you were like, "There's no way." But you had some conversations that influenced you and changed your mind. Tell me about that period when you got that call and what was going through your head.
Yeah, so that was 2010. So, I had kind of, I guess, rebounded from that 2004 end of Norba racing and kind of rebranded my career as like a Midwest mountain biker. And I was getting a lot of support from the bicycle industry. I was getting a lot of support outside of the industry. And in 2010, I was probably as successful as I ever have been in the sport as far as like race results go and sponsorship income. So yeah, I got this phone call um, basically from a local bike shop up in northern Wisconsin. And they said, hey, we're partnering with Michigan Tech University in the UP in Houghton. Would you be interested in doing a junior mountain bike camp? My instant reaction was, that is not what I do. Like I am a professional racer. I race every single weekend. I need to go do this race so I can win $250 so I can pay my mortgage. Like
Right.
there's no way. But after I thought about it for a little bit, there's probably some other people twisting my arm. I decided to go for it. And like that first year at camp, we had 6 kids. And it was obviously above and beyond the best weekend of the year that summer. And like again, kind of like coaching when I first started, like the passion that I have that I was able to share with others, and then I was able to see their excitement. And I would say probably 6 out of the 6 kids who were at that first camp are still mountain biking in
Mm,
some fashion or another. Some of them do or to shore, others have grown up to be mountain bike coaches themselves, some of them are still racing. So like to be a part of that, to see those kids learn and grow and have passion for the sport, like it was eye-opening. And so without a doubt, I was like, oh, I'm going to do this next year. And the next year, went from 6 kids to 12 kids, 2 years later, we were selling out at 25 kids. A couple years after that, we decided to do two camps, and those sold out instantly as well. So like it just continued to grow from there.
And it's currently in the camp right now as it's set up. Is it just the camp you do in Houghton, Michigan, or I saw you did some in Puerto Rico even. What's the more consistent circulating location?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. So as I'm getting older and kind of getting towards the end of my professional racing career, I'm pushing more and more for this junior mountain bike camp program to expand. So actually, just a couple days ago, we announced we're going to be doing a new camp at Northern Michigan University in Marquette. So that's pretty exciting. That's going to happen this summer. I've actually also been talking with the Berkey Foundation, and they're over in the Cable Hayward area about starting up a new camp. We did the camp in Puerto Rico. I do team camps with the Broken Spoke team based out of Ishpeming. So yeah, it's growing. It's super amazing. Last
Hmm.
year, between the four camps that I did, there's also one at the Windman Trails in northern Wisconsin. Like we had 100+ spots open for registration, and all 100+ spots sold out probably
Wow,
within 5 minutes. So
Whoa,
wow,
it's been
that's
super
crazy.
successful
yeah,
so
that's
far,
awesome.
and it's a ton of fun.
Yeah, walk me through. You said this is a week long camp. You said is that correct?
Yeah, each camp is a little bit different. So the camps that I held at Michigan Tech were 5 days. So those camps were kind of designed a little bit to get the college experience, which will be similar at Northern Michigan University. So the kids will stay in the dorm room. The kids kind of are responsible for following the itinerary, showing up to breakfast at 8 a.m. We eat in the cafeterias. In the past, we've done some like classroom lectures with professors at the university. So they really get the university experience,
Mm.
and then as well as like five different amazing mountain bike trail systems in that Houghton slash Copper Harbor area. So yeah, the mountain biking is top notch, and they get that again that college experience. Whereas like the Windman Trail camp, that's a little more like a summer camp. So the vibes there are swimming, fishing,
Mm.
campfires, s'mores. The kids stay in yurts. We're outside all day long playing basketball, playing volleyball, and then we ride over to the Windman Trails, probably ride 6 hours, a 3 hour morning session, a lunch break, a 3 hour evening session, and then back to the YMCA camp where we do all those other fun activities. So each camp has a little bit of a different vibe. Obviously, Puerto Rico, was a very different vibe. Um, but
Yeah,
yeah, each camp has a little bit of a different vibe, and they're super fun.
tell me about the Puerto Rico. How did you make that happen? How did that even come about? And what was the experience like going there? And how was that different from all these other camp locations that you typically operate in?
Yeah, so the Puerto Rico camp basically stemmed from Hurricane Maria. So shortly after Hurricane Maria, um, three or four athletes from Puerto Rico ended up in Prescott, where I do my winter training miles and where I live in the winter. And I instantly became friends with them. That relationship grew. I went to Puerto Rico for the first time to do a couple races in the early season. I think that must have been 2021 or 2022, in that time frame. And yeah, I guess just wanted to like expand the camp, and Puerto Rico was an awesome option. Like they have an Olympic village there where we set up housing and food, and then yeah, they have a ton of riders who are super passionate. So I thought it would be a great opportunity to get some kids from the Midwest down to Puerto Rico over the holidays when they weren't in school, and then the beginning of the race season down in Puerto Rico is right after Christmas and the New Year's. They have a big holiday celebration down there. with again Christmas, New Year's, Three Kings Day. So
Mm.
we did the camp right around that time frame where nobody was in school. And we had, for that first year, I would say we had maybe 10 to 12 kids from Puerto Rico, and then 6 kids came from the States down to Puerto Rico to do the camp. So again, super successful, super fun, different experience for everybody.
Yeah, that's really cool. I saw that
Yeah.
on the website when I was checking it out. I was like, Puerto Rico, that's crazy. That'd be such a crazy event and just a trip to go on, especially as a young kid who's getting into mountain biking and you're really passionate about it. You get to travel to this camp, to a whole new location and dive in. So I thought that was really interesting. You also
Yeah, it
talked
was great. It was great for sure.
you also talked about a lot of these like transformation stories. You have so many of these younger audiences that you're training and you're coaching, and you talked about how you've seen them sort of grow both as an athlete, some of them just growing up even just to be parents. Are there any transformation moments that stand out to you within all of those individuals?
Yeah, I would say that's tough to answer, because there's so many.
Yeah.
I've seen, kids show up to junior mountain bike camp as a 12-year-old, and then over the course of the last 10 to 15 years, that kid is now a professional racer, succeeding in the most challenging races in the United States right now. So, like that transformation to go from a 12-year-old kid with like
Yeah.
two soft serve ice creams and a Camelback full of Mountain Dew, like,
I love that.
just
Yeah,
jacked on
yeah.
sugar, to like,
Yeah.
a young adult who's running his own business and competing as a professional successfully. Like that story is amazing to me.
Yeah.
Like it's equally as amazing to me as some kid who showed up to junior mountain bike camp. They weren't really into mountain biking, but they then turned around, went to Michigan Tech University, fell in love with mountain biking, grew up, got married, had kids. Like kids are mountain biking now, like that tradition of keeping it in the family. Like I've seen that success story. I've seen kids grow up to be doctors. I've seen kids grow up to
That's
be
crazy.
army generals, like anything like across the board. Like I mentioned earlier, some of those kids are now mountain bike coaches as well, coaching NICA teams. So just to see all those different stories is like equally as rewarding to me.
Yeah, that's incredible. Having that
Yeah.
wide of an influence and impact and seeing the fruits of the labor kind of evolve over time as you've been doing it for so many years has got to feel just incredible.
It's, yeah, super rewarding, and that's why I want to keep doing it.
Yeah.
Well, that leads me to a question. We talk about overtime, and you've been racing, for let's say really over 3 decades, right? I mean, how did now? Because you're still racing at. I don't know if a lot of people listening to this realize the level that you're still racing at. So, can you tell us your age, and then first of all, how old are you, Brian?
Yeah, Aaron, I don't like these questions. I don't like where this is going right now.
I love it. Oh, this is gonna be fun.
We're going to cut this out of the podcast
If
after
he won't
this.
answer it, I'm gonna loosely say his age, but
No, I'll answer it. Yeah, yeah. Currently 47 years old, I
oh, I
believe.
was close. Okay, I thought I was close. I wasn't sure. So the level you're racing at, because I know a couple of the kids that you coach that you're racing against, and I'm thinking of one particular race, and I want to talk about this race a little bit. It's Orta Shore, and are racing against. I think you used to coach Caleb. Is that right? And
Yep,
Dax as well. And I'm
yep,
not sure on their last name. Is it Caleb Schwartz?
yep.
And then what's Dax's
Dax and
last
Ma.
name? Okay, there we go. And these guys are in their early to mid 20s, correct?
Yep.
And last year and the year before, you were in a sprint finish with one or both of these guys, and they literally, I mean, they could be your kids age
That's
wise. You know what I
crazy.
mean?
That's crazy to
So,
think
and I
about.
don't
They,
think a
they,
lot of
they,
people
oh,
realize.
they are my kids, Aaron.
Oh, that's true. That is
So
very true.
both Caleb and Daxton did come through the junior mountain bike program.
Yeah.
So these are kids who I've seen again since age 12 or 13. and I've mentored them
Oh,
through
that's
junior
crazy to
mountain
think
bike
about.
camp,
Yeah.
through their junior years of racing and going to junior world championships, both mountain bike and cyclocross. And now I'm coaching them, and
Yeah.
now they're, young professional racers getting contracts, running their own businesses.
Yeah.
So yeah, they are super good friends. They're training partners, and yeah, I love hanging out with those guys.
Yeah, they're both super nice, and we got to hang out with them a little bit at the Orta Shore race, and kind of going back to that race, especially with you being in a sprint finish against these guys, like how does that, like, are they surprised you're still keeping up with them? Maybe you train with them, I don't know, but like, and the other part of that question really is like, how does age play a factor in your training and racing now?
Yeah, so one, are they surprised? I don't think they're surprised,
Okay.
but I think they are equally as motivated to train hard to try to beat me as I
Mm,
am
okay.
motivated to
Yeah.
try to continue to beat them or hang with them. So it's this awesome relationship
Yeah.
of like sharing knowledge,
Yeah.
motivating each other, keeping things positive. But then when it comes time to the race, like there are no friendships, there are no alliances, like it's
Yeah.
each man for
Gloves are
himself.
off.
It's game on.
So again, that's why I love hanging out with those guys and training with those guys. So yeah, I don't think they're surprised, but they're definitely motivated and they definitely want to beat the old man.
I love it. That's great.
Wait, so how
Now,
did that race end? We
oh,
didn't talk
yeah.
about
Okay.
what
Brian will
what
tell you.
happened there, Brian.
Oh,
Did
I mean, there's been many, I would say probably the last 5 years, it's come down to a sprint with me and Caleb and Dax and Jordan Wakely and
Yeah.
Kyan Olshov. I think this last year, Dax got the best of us. Yeah, maybe I was second or third or fourth. Like really, it's about who wins, not who gets second, third, or fourth.
sure,
I
sure.
think the
Yeah.
previous year, I don't even remember. Maybe Caleb won before that. Maybe
I think that's right.
Wakely won. It's been a little bit since I've won, but I've always been like, this close.
We'll
So
Yeah.
edit
maybe
that
this is
part
my
out. We'll just replace your name and edit it out so that when people see this, we'll just say that you won each one, and we'll
yeah,
fudge
that
the
sounds
numbers
good.
here.
I'm
We'll
okay with
fudge it.
that.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. So one thing I kind of want to, before I ask this question here, Dad, I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to cover in this realm or topic before I sort of round us out.
Well, I did. I want to, because we've talked about mindset and how important that is, not just in racing, but in anything in life, and especially, all athletics, especially. But so, Brian, when you're in the middle of a race, and I think a lot of people out there that are in tune with mountain bike racing, they know there's a mental game that happens in the middle of the race too, and really from the start to finish. But when you're in the lead pack, and I'm thinking of an instant where I've given you a water bottle handoff before on 510, on Route 510, that climb in the Orta Shore race. And the last 2 years I've handed you the water bottle off there. You were the leader in that pack because you knew I was going to be there. And one year you guys were so muddy. It was the first year I didn't even recognize you because you were all so muddy. I couldn't see which one you were. And I called out your name and you raised your hand up. And when you raised your hand up, you did it so slow and you didn't make any other movements. I realized that you were running at 95%, maybe 99%. I don't really know what percentage of your capacity you were running at. But I realized, I'm like, well, what's going through your mind when you're pushing that hard for that long? Because that's a 2.5 hour race roughly. Are you thinking like, oh, this really hurts? Or are you thinking, is someone around me getting tired? Or are you thinking, okay, I need to get to this next spot? Like, what's going on in your mind during these races when you're deep in that pain cave, let's say?
Yeah, I would say constant analysis. And if
Okay.
you're not constantly analyzing, you're probably doing something wrong. So at any given moment, I'm thinking, I need to eat, I need to fuel, I need to drink if I'm going to make it towards the end of the race. And then I'm looking like, what is my competition doing? What's he doing? What's he doing? Who am I following? When do I want to be in the lead? When do I want to be following? And then I'm also thinking, this part of the course is next, this part of the course is next, this part of the course is next. And knowing this part's coming up, I need to be here, or I need to be ahead of Dax, or I need to be behind Caleb, or whatever it is, or now is my strength on the course. I need to be moving forward. I need to eat. I need to rest. I need to recover. So it's constant analysis, constant thinking, making sure your bike is okay. But yeah, you've got to always be thinking, but then you have to also be like calm within the storm. Like it is chaos. We are going at times 35 miles per hour down a mountain bike trail. There's a lead motorcycle spitting rocks and mud at you. You're behind five guys and their tires are spitting water at you. You can't see out of your glasses. So like it's like an intense moment and you're constantly thinking, but you have to stay calm at the same time.
Well, that was a much better answer. I wasn't sure where we were going with that,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
that paints the picture very well. Well, let's talk about, because you had mentioned mechanical as you were explaining that. And I remember one instance a few years ago in Orta Shore where I think you had an issue with your brake rotor. So, we know how these races come down to, we talked about a sprint finish. So we know how close you have to be to the leaders or how far up you have to be to stay in the lead, let's say. When you have a mechanical issue like that, or when someone takes off and you're gassed, and there's say 10 miles left and someone just takes off and you're like, man, I got to keep up with this guy or I'm out. Like, what do you, in those critical moments, what do you mentally do to overcome that? Because as we talked about earlier, a lot of people, it's easy to fold under that kind of pressure. So what do you do to overcome that and stay in the race and stay competitive?
Yes, it's kind of the same thing I just described. It's like that constant analysis.
Yeah.
So in that moment when I had a problem with my brake rotor, like all of a sudden my analysis was like to my brake rotor. What can I do? Can I fix this? How can I fix this? Is it really slowing me down? Is it really a problem? Or is it just a noise on my bike and it's not that bad? And then at that point, like, don't forget to eat, don't forget to drink.
Mm.
I don't want to crash because of this problem on my bike, so I'm going to stay behind these guys. Like, I get constant analysis. Like in other situations, if it's not necessarily the mechanical, but it's like two guys get away. One year, Caleb and Dax got away. Two guys up the road in a breakaway. And my instant thought process, like, how do I catch him? How do I catch him? I got to work with this guy. I've got this much trail left. And at some point, that analysis needs to switch to, I'm not going to catch them. So how do I get third? And then then you start over again. Like now the goal is to get third because first and second is not achievable. How do I get third? Got to eat, got to drink, got to keep the bike safe. This part's coming up, this part's coming up. So you're just constantly thinking, constantly using all 30 years of experience that you've gained personally, plus all the experience that I've gained from coaching other athletes.
Yeah, that makes sense.
There has to be moments, I'd imagine. I mean, you have been doing it for so long, so maybe this isn't the case, but there has to be some negativity that creeps up that you have to maybe shove down during those moments.
Good
Is there
question.
anything like that you can call to that sometimes in those moments, this goes through my head for a second. I just got to tell it to shut up and I got to start analyzing and doing these other things.
Oh, for sure. And mostly for me, that's like, when the pressure of the front of the race is on and everybody is at their absolute limit. So, your heart rate's through the roof, your legs are burning, you start to see cross-eyed or double, and you're ripping through single track and your handlebar is like, millimeters away from
Yeah.
each tree on each side of the trail. Like it is definitely that moment that the mental strength comes into play. And every ounce of you is saying, you shouldn't do this anymore. This is not what the human body is meant to do. But you've got to tell yourself, like, I want to win this race. I'm going to win this race. And if I'm suffering this bad, these guys are also suffering to the same level. So I can wait out this storm as long as they can wait out this storm. And eventually, in a race like Orta Shore, the pace will slow back down.
Now, I don't know what you're hearing, Deb, but what I'm hearing is it sounds like the mindset that you have, the experience that you have is primed and ready for you to do the Margie Gessick.
Oh, I like
What
that.
what is
I did
wasn't
not tell him to
expecting
ask
that.
that question, Brian.
where are we at with
I was
that,
not
Brian?
expecting that one.
Why are we seeing your name this year? When are we going to see your name on the list?
It's a possibility. Like the Margie is like something that's not in my normal realm of like competition. Like I'm more of a short track, which is a 20-minute event, cyclocross, which is a 1 hour event, or like traditional US cross country racing, which is anywhere from an hour and a half to 2 hours. So the Margie at a 12-hour event, like it's not in my
Yeah.
wheelhouse.
Yeah.
So always like in the back of my head, I've kind of had it and like a bucket list to do a 100 miler.
Mm-hmm.
And my thought process has always been like do lumberjack because
Mm,
it's the easiest, and
yeah.
then I can just check it off the list.
Mm.
Or do Margie because it's the absolute hardest
I
and I
like that
love
plan
those
better.
trails and check it off the list that way. So
Yeah.
I've actually been fortunate enough to be up in Ishpeming the last 2 years to experience the Margie and those vibes,
Yeah.
and just what the race course is all about. So I'm leaning towards Margie versus Lumberjack. Is it going to be this year?
Uh,
Doubtful, but
Oh
maybe.
man,
we'll get him.
we're gonna
Yeah,
keep pressure on
Yeah.
him,
We'll
Austin.
put the pressure on.
We'll just gently keep nudging
Yep.
him.
Yep. He might.
that's what it is. Like, yeah, and I've got 500 people doing that, so
Yeah,
eventually I will crack. I just don't know if it's this
Yeah.
year
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, before I round it off, is there anything else you wanted to add, Dad? Any
No, I
questions or
think we
anything?
covered a lot. I mean, we threw a lot at you today, didn't
Yeah, we
we?
did. You barreled through it. Now, again, when I was preparing for this, one, I had ample time given how many times we've rescheduled, but
Yeah.
I dove pretty deep and I found an interview you did years ago. I don't know if you still approach each year like this, but um, you've said in the past that each year there's a different little dream that you sort of focus and shift your energy towards. Is that still the case? And if so, what is your next little dream that you're focused on?
Yeah, I would say that was the case for a while. It was always exciting for me to do something new. So, for example, the first race that I did in Puerto Rico, this is the first time I'm going down to the Caribbean to do some racing. It's hot and humid. That was exciting, and I had friends who spoke Spanish and knew the area. Like I got the ultimate tour guide
Mm-hmm.
experience, and I got to race my bike there. A couple of years ago, I did the Transylvania Epic Stage Race. Like that was the new thing, something new, something exciting. uh, 2009, I believe, I did a cyclocross race in China, and that was like the new exciting thing for that season. So at this point in my career, I would say I've gone away from that just a little bit, and I've really tried to focus in on those races that I do love, those races that I do have a big passion for, and really focus on trying to perform well there. And then some of that other dream stuff is probably more launching these new junior mountain bike camps, getting other people excited about the sport, just like I have, and starting that at a young age.
Mm, excellent. All right. Well, we appreciate you hopping on again. Thank you for the multiple reschedules and staying patient with
Yes.
us. If
Yeah, no
anyone,
problem.
if anyone wants to follow along with your racing, your coaching, the junior mountain bike camp, where should they go?
Yeah, I would say probably right now, we do have a website we're working on relaunching, but that's www.momentumendurance.com. That's for the coaching. For my personal stuff, probably most active on Instagram at the Wisco Disco. And Junior Mountain Bike Camp, probably same thing. Most active on Instagram, and that's at JRMTB Camps. So some good stories, some fun Instagram stuff going on there. And then with my personal stuff, it's a good variety of my racing, my coaching, the camps. our dogs, a little bit of family life in Arizona and in Wisconsin.
Awesome.
Great.
Well, we'll add some links to that too in the show notes.
Yeah, and I had one thing I wanted to add in too. P39 Adventure Gear is the sponsor of this podcast, and Brian, you and I have talked about this for a while now. We are currently, just so you know, we're officially putting together some kits for each racer that you have at all your camps this year. I got some ideas from you, and I've taken some other ideas. So I'm in the process of designing all those kits. So we're going to donate all of those. We want one for every racer that you have at all your camps this year. So we're excited about that too, to partner up with you and Momentum Endurance and junior mountain bike camps.
Cool. Thank you very much. That sounds amazing. And that's definitely something, kids show up to camp and, they're maybe slightly underprepared. And we're out in the middle of nowhere, East Bluff, Copper Harbor, and we got 5 flat tires, and I only have 3 tubes in my big old Camelback. So that will be super helpful.
Cool. Good.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks again, Brian.
Thanks, Brian.
All right. Thanks, guys.